In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Marianne's guests are leaders in their field, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in their own work. They teach others to develop, refocus, and grow. Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. And remember, make every moment count.
Welcome to Moments with Marianne. Today we're here with a very special guest, Alan Vaysberg, and he's here to talk about his book, The New Love Triangle, Your Practical Guide to a Love-Filled Life. So welcome to the show, Alan.
Thank you so much for having me, Marianne.
Oh, thank you. And so, I know you to be this dynamo of a person who's really gone through some transformation. For our listeners, why don't you talk a little bit about yourself so they get to know you?
Wow, I think that's the first time I was ever introduced as a dynamo. Thank you. I'm not sure I quite deserve it, but I'll take it. My life, again, we all have our stories, and mine took me as an immigrant to the United States as a kid. I wanted to be a professional tennis player and an actor, and I went into IT instead to get a real job, as my parents put it. Liked the real job, built a business out of it, but was very unfulfilled. Left that job, spent 4 years deciding what it is that I want to do in life, and tried many things during that time, like writing my first book, finishing Second City, getting my black belt in martial arts, getting into a movie, being on the radio for a number of years. So I did a whole bunch of things, and then understood what is it that I can bring to the world, and started putting that in place, which turned into something that's called the Seamless Method, which is my health and wellness method. And a part of it, Seamless actually stands for these 8 elements that we're supposed to be doing. And one of the 8 elements is love. And I always knew that that was a separate, large topic that I was going to write a book on. And one of my best friends started writing her book, and it kind of got me in the process of writing mine. And I couldn't think of a better one to start with than love.
Well, and that's, it's kind of interesting when we have friends that, get going on a project that we have in our minds. It's kind of almost like we're being dared to go and complete our project.
It's true. I've been talking about it for years. I always, thought of myself as a writer because I've been writing poetry since I was a kid, and I wrote stories, and I, write articles for different publications, and I have begun about 8 books in various different stages, but hadn't finished any books other than poetry books. So finally, my friend started her book, and kind of looked at me and said, "When are you starting yours?" And that was, I think, the final nail in the book coffin.
Well, that will definitely do it. So your book, The New Love Triangle, what is that all about?
It's about building something that's very unlike the old the love triangle. Mm-hmm. Anytime people look at my book, they're like, "What? Are you sure? Is this where you want to go with a self-help book?" And I thought, why not change the paradigm? Because the old love triangle is all about problems and creating additional problems within your life and stress. And the new love triangle is anything but that. It's a combination of 3 facets, 3 different parts of love or types of love. One is self-love. Another is loving others. And the third one, usually the missing element for at least many of the people that I talk to, is loving your day. So when those 3 are put together, they form what I call the new love triangle.
Well, and that's a really nice way to approach this. So overall, your inspiration for writing this book, aside from you've been kind of working in this genre for some time, and you had a friend that was kind of motivating you to kind of push ahead and get your book done. Was there anything else that really drove you to write this?
Yeah, my wife, or
There you
everything
go.
or everything that my wife has taught me about life, which
Yeah.
she's certainly one of my greatest teachers. And even though it is a nice thing to say, I really do mean it. With my wife, I learned many things, including what actual love was, not just the romantic variety, but what love is as a married person. And we've been fortunate enough to be, together for about 19 years, married for 17 years. And there are many phases of that, and that was one of the aspects. Another aspect that I really wanted to to explore was one of my favorite books is by Gary Chapman, which is the 5 Love Languages, which was a book that my wife, again, in her infinite wisdom, had us read when we got married, which really helped, because it allowed us to look at love and how we perceive and how we expect to receive it. So that was a great book, but what was missing in my mind was the 6th or the first love language, which is self-love, because we are taught from very early age to love others. We forget that that statement actually is love others as you would yourself, and we completely miss that part. And we really cannot love others fully until we learn how to love ourselves first, which to some may sound egotistical, and that's certainly not the way it's meant to. But loving others is something that I really wanted to get out there. Excuse me, loving yourself, loving others. But loving yourself was a very specific thing that I had to learn at an early age, being the nerdy kid who writes poetry, who girls wanted to be friends with but didn't want to date. So loving myself was something that I really had to learn very specifically in my experience. But going farther, I saw that many of the people that I deal with, my clients, they really get to the point where they don't love themselves. They are negative to themselves. They have this badge of honor that they wear of being hard on themselves and think that this is the best way of going about it. And that is something that I wanted to really get it out there and change that paradigm. So the Gary Chapman's book and adding to it the self-love was another aspect. And finally, it's this, being in the corporate world. I still, work in the corporate environment, still drive to work, 45 minutes each way in traffic. You get to see how stressed out people are, how sad people are, how disappointed they are with, doing something that they don't perceive as their calling in life. And that part of not liking your day, forget about not loving your day, but how do you get to be at a high vibrational state and love your day when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, at least in your mind. So those pieces really kind of put everything together and, allowed me to write the book and make it practical and give people specific things that they can do in order to put it together and live a love-filled life.
Well, before I forget, make sure to tell your wife that we are all very grateful that she has motivated you to write this book. So she's a saint for sure, But
living with me, she is. I really second that notion. I really would agree with you on the self-love part. I think a lot of times people kind of get caught up where we look for love outside ourselves. And I've seen many times when you've asked, when I've coached people myself or when I've talked with people and you ask them, do you love yourself? Most people pause. And others have a really hard time even getting to a place where they feel like that's something that they can even do. So having your book is a very easy read and something that's simple that they can pick up and start kind of heading in the right direction in regards to how to feel about themselves and kind of let go of that self-critic. Yeah, I did. What I certainly didn't want to do in my book is I didn't want to start criticizing people and then tell them not to criticize themselves. So it's meant as an easy read, but it is very thought-provoking, and that was the part of it. I wanted to make it practical. I wanted to make it short because we're all very busy. And I didn't want to give another 400-page book that tells people how to live their life where they don't have a half an hour to actually read it. So this book is meant to be read in a sitting, so over lunch, on a short flight, or on a commute where hopefully you're not driving at that time. Although the book will be coming out in an audiobook format very shortly. It will be on audible.com. So
that'll be great.
Could do that, yeah. I read it myself, so you hear a little bit of my accent in the interview right now. I'm sure you'll hear a lot of it in the book. So use that as another colorful flavor. But it's definitely me and not somebody else doing it.
I think it carries your energy with it. You know, your experience, your wisdom, and your energy that people can really grasp from.
The book is about authenticity, and I can't urge other people to be authentic if I'm not being that myself. So it contains a lot of what happened to me, what happened to my clients, and their perspectives on these specific tips, the 9 tips, and the 3 different types of love that I talk about. Same thing with the audiobook. When I was recording it, it really, I hope, it seemed to be, but I hope it brings through that very down-to-earth authenticity, because we really should stop putting ourselves on a pedestal or putting ourselves down. We are who we are. We are not perfect. There are many things that we all need to work on, and it doesn't mean that we can't love life in the process.
Yeah, and that's where we need to come from for sure. Mm-hmm. Now, in your book, you talk about loving your day, and I used to do a commute, and I know there was anything but loving my day when I was doing that. So, you know, what are some tips for our listeners that they can use today to kind of shift that and start loving their own day?
You know what? You brought up an aspect that I really did not like when I was working for another company a while ago. Mm-hmm. I was driving about 45 minutes or longer each way, and aside from listening to sports, which was great, there really wasn't much to do. This time, I'm driving about the same distance, and I look forward to my commute. And the only reason why I do that is because I listen to books on tape. I have my spiritual reading that instead of reading, I listen to. And I actually, I found myself sitting in a garage, not wanting to get out of the car because I wanted to hear that part of the book. And that made it much more enjoyable. And what a great way to start your day. You know, I start my day with a meditation. So I wake up. I would not have believed myself had I been listening to myself only, a year ago. But right now I wake up at 5:50 in the morning just to make sure that I have enough time to meditate before I go and avoid some traffic and get to work at 7:30 in the morning. So the way to start loving your day is to love aspects of your day and to find something within what you're doing in everyday chores or everyday activities that you think are not fun. Find something in them of enjoyment, and then focusing on those specifically. So put things throughout your day that you love that'll make it flow better. Or one thing that you can do that will make every day a beautiful day is to spend even 5 minutes on doing something that you love. So insert something that you love into every single day. For me, it's writing poetry, it's doing inspirational memes, it's getting it out there and helping people lead a better life. So it takes about 10 minutes to create. I send them out. I feel great. So it doesn't matter how difficult the day might have been, how much stress I could have encountered. When I do this, that's it. My day is not a waste. My day is beautiful because I was able to tap into the creative side of me, into that side that makes my heart sing. So whatever makes your heart sing. It could be listening to music. It could be walking in a park. It could be playing racquetball. It really doesn't matter. As long as you do something for yourself, as little as 5 minutes a day, which all of us can afford to do.
Okay. Now, with your with like the variety of clients that you see, because I know you're a top keynote speaker, you do coaching, you've got all these different things that you offer that you help people with. When you're working with people, what is the number one thing that they come to you for? Is it for maybe like to kind of rediscover their life purpose, or maybe, try to, change stress in their life, what's the number one thing that you see?
It's hard to say because it varies. It all flows, right? Now that the book is out there, more people are coming to me because of that, and they're talking about love and how to find love within their life. Not necessarily just the romantic variety, but love and of themselves or of their day. I do 4 different things, which to me are all part of the same umbrella of life recalibration. Thus, I call myself the life recalibration expert. But it starts with life purpose. So that's what I really started with when I left my IT world for a while. It really was about life purpose for me. It's living my essence. It's being in tune with who I am and why I'm here, and actually doing something about that. So people come to me for that, and in terms of keynote and in terms of coaching, that's certainly a big part of it. Naturally, as a part of that comes career selection, and comes leaving career gracefully and going into another career, doing it not the way that I did it. And I'm teaching people what to do, so you don't have to deal with what I dealt with. So career change is a part of that, and the 7 steps to a successful career change would be that. Then the seamless method, which is your health and wellness and your life recalibration in that regard, the 8 essential elements that we can all do every day that will make everything changed and everything better. And then love specifically. So it's those. And then I still have some people that come to me for spiritual coaching. Couching, that would be interesting. Spiritual couching. I like that. You take coaching and you take teaching and you get couching.
That actually sounds like something I would sign up for. So
spiritual couching. See, we're trademarking on your show. I'm going to put the application in process.
I think you should right away.
I'm writing that down. Spiritual couching.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. So some people still come to me for that because at one point or another, I've done some work as a certified angel oracle card reader, and I do have mediumship abilities that sometimes I tap into. So it varies. It really varies. But hopefully people come because they feel that I can be of use to them, so I can help them recalibrate their life, because it's not about me. Mm-hmm. It's not about my messages. It's really about the people themselves finding within themselves the ability to change their life. And any way they do that is a great thing.
Well, and so do you use if someone comes to you and they're just like, I don't even know where I'm supposed to start, and I want to spend some time with you. I read your book. I think it's awesome, and I know I need help. Do you use your intuitive gifts to kind of help guide what to work on first?
Yes, and again, it flows because there's no restriction in the movement. It's not that, hey, this is the first thing that we're doing in the process. I really allow it to flow, and I have Bruce Lee that comes in my mind right now of saying that there is no form, there is no structure. You have to flow. Mm-hmm. Be like water. It's love Bruce Lee. Love Bruce Lee. One of my early mentors that I keep remembering. So from that perspective, for people who don't know where to start, usually the first part is coaching. There is intuition involved in that, but it's not as an active variety where I tap into spirit and the spirit says, here's what you do. It's really more of an integrated variety where during the conversation we start with something and then we start kind of unraveling, because usually people may not know what they're here for, but once we start digging, everybody knows why they're here. Mm-hmm. They may not want to accept it, or they may think that it's silly, or they may think that there is no way that they can make money at it. But we all know why we're here. We all know what makes our heart sing. And for those that don't, it's just a matter of digging. And I certainly have some intuitive hits that come up that I start asking certain questions that may open up certain channels within a person to get to that information. But it's really whatever works. I don't know the Bible because I'm not religious. I'm very spiritual. I'm not religious. Mm-hmm. But I've noticed that I talk to a person who is very religious, and all of a sudden I start talking to them and quoting, parts of the Bible. I don't know the Bible. I've obviously that information is somewhere, and we can say that that information was channeled at that time, but it really varies. It varies from one person to another, depending on what is the right thing. The only common ingredient that I see is that everybody that comes to me is dealing with something that I am either dealing with or I have dealt with and I can be of use. Because all of the coaching relationships, it's not just the client that benefits, it's the coach that benefits as well.
Well, it's that kind of thought process that you can't take somebody where you haven't been. And so you really do have a lot of information to be able to help people through that process, regardless if it's their health or stress. I did see that you have a section that talks about, changing careers without losing your marriage, which I thought,
Sure.
which is probably real important because I've seen that happen a lot where people get into positions where they're starting maybe a new business or something and their honey wasn't quite ready for all that,
True. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
honey turns sour right away. It's a tough thing, and I kid, but it really is a very, very big change because, in essence, you're coming to the person who you've been with and you're saying, hey, I am not who you thought I was. I am also this. It forces other people to start thinking of what else are you not that I thought you were. The idea of being comfortable in a relationship, the idea of knowing who you're with, the idea of trust, the ideas of just simply being forced to take a look at yourself in the mirror as the person next to you is doing to themselves, and they're doing something about their life that you may not be ready to do for yours. It's all a difficult process that needs to be handled very, very lovingly and carefully. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you really can damage a relationship that you've been in for a long time that you cherish if you don't do it the right way. So for me, thankfully, my wife, again, is a person that really deserves a lot of the credit, but her being open to the communication. Also, I had a use of a life coach. One of my first life coaches, Jason
Mm-hmm.
Sterling, was instrumental at that time because he's gone through it. He'd gone through all of these career changes and moving from corporate world into the spiritual arena. And he helped my wife understand what I was going through. So that's where I think coaching can also benefit people, not because I'm trying to sell more coaching. You don't have to use me in the process, but really go to somebody because sometimes it becomes hard for your loved one to talk to you only. You
Mm-hmm.
should have an intermediary, and that becomes that becomes a buffer within your situation.
I've had a business and spiritual coach for years, and it's always good to have somebody that you can bounce things with and say, well, what do you think about this? Am I on target? Am I totally off in the bushes on this? Where am I? And get a perspective. So I have great appreciation for the coaching that you do because I know that you approach it, in that way as well, where people can come and really kind of talk to you about anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why it's so hard. And I know all of the marketing experts, and I agree with them that pick a lane, dude. People really need to know you for one specific thing. Otherwise, they don't know what you do. And
Mm-hmm.
I tried that. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work for me because I look at it holistically. I look at it as different facets of the same prism. And for me to say that I'm only going to help you here would not be helpful because you may be coming to me for one reason, but the answer to your question lies somewhere else. So that's why I leave it as is, and if it means that I'm going to be lesser known in the process, but being able to help people more fully, I'm okay with that.
Well, and I think that the people that are supposed to work with you are the ones that, and I feel this for myself, are the ones that actually will resonate with my work. So they end up finding us anyway, So.
True. Very true.
Mm-hmm. Well, any final thoughts for our listeners today?
Yes. Two thoughts. Number one, don't take yourself seriously.
That's a good one.
Yeah, we really shouldn't. We're here and we're playing the game of life, and life can be very serious, but let's not take ourselves very seriously during it. So that's number one. And number two, on a more serious point, really do your best to pause every day for at least a few minutes. Close your eyes and just breathe. We are the horses and the riders. We really are driving ourselves way too fast, or we're riding ourselves way too fast.
Mm-hmm.
Take a breath. During that breath, you're going to see things clearly, and you may slow down, or you may choose to go into a different direction. But do that. That alone should be enough to get you back into a state of balance.
That's beautiful. Where can our listeners find you?
You've mentioned my book, so that could be a good place to start, not because you have to buy it, but a website is there. So the newlovetriangle.com is a website that links to my pages. It links to Facebook. You have all the information about the book there as well. Or just Google me. I'm kind of everywhere, so you can find me in many different areas of the Internet. And there are only two Alan Vaysbergs. One is a very nice lawyer in L.A., and I'm the other guy.
Well, and I know that you have, when our listeners go to your website, you have a giveaway that they can go ahead and take advantage of. They can connect with you on social media and also look at the coaching, speaking, books, and other great information that you have available. So, thank you so much for taking time to be on the show with us today, Alan.
It's my sincere pleasure. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's definitely a pleasure to have you here.
We're going to pause here for a quick break. You want to stay tuned for the next segment. We're going to be talking with Megan Feldman Bettencourt. And Megan has a book that everyone is talking about. Elizabeth Gilbert, Adam Grant, Marianne Williamson, just to name a few. Her book's titled Triumph of the Heart, Forgiveness in an Unforgiving World. So we'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
Discover the book publisher's weekly calls compelling. Piper, Once and Again, is the breathtaking debut novel by psychic medium Caroline E. Zani. Death has no power over love. Piper, Once and Again, is a story of hope for the hopeless and faith amidst tragedy. Follow Piper on a journey of loss and redemption as she tries to find the one man who can help her figure out why she must be. Piper, Once and Again. www.carolinezani.com.
Are you a successful entrepreneur or sales professional, but you're ready to take your success to the next level? I'm Bob Berg, and I invite you to join me at our next Go Giver Sales Academy. You'll learn how to communicate your exceptional value to more people, sell at full price, become objection-proof, and embrace the abundance that's your birthright. Limited to just 12 people, so it's personalized, impactful, and transformational. Visit GoGiverSalesAcademy.com and see what others are saying.
Hello, this is J.J. Burton, former NFL pro football player and now author, keynote speaker, elite trainer, and success coach. To play in the NFL, it takes certain qualities, principles, and a work ethic that's unmatched. The secret strategy for success is something that I train top leaders, CEOs, sales teams, and entrepreneurs who are looking to move their game to the next level. If you need some VIP coaching or looking for a motivational and spirited keynote speaker, hire me and cultivate a culture of success by visiting jjburden.com.
During times of uncertainty, challenges, and change, how do we find a ray of hope to move forward? In Amy Van Adde-Slater's best-selling book, Moments, Magic, Miracles, and Martinis, she offers a torch of inspiration, motivation, mindfulness, and authenticity that illuminates even the most desperate of situations with possibility. Order your copy today to see what the buzz is all about at www.amyvslater.com.
This is Tanya Carroll Richardson, author of the new book, Angel Insights. I used my psychic gifts to get messages from the angels to write this book, and I'd like to help you get personalized messages from your own angels. Learn your subconscious blocks, make sense of the past and present, and receive advice about navigating your future in an angel reading at TanyaBlessings.com. Book a session with me and your angels at TanyaBlessings.com.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. I am so excited to be introducing our next guest. She's an award-winning journalist who her work has appeared in magazines such as Glamour, Details, and Southwest Magazine, and in newspapers including Newsday and the Daily Observer. Her name is Megan Feldman Bettencourt, and she's here today to talk with us about her new book, Triumph of the Heart, Forgiveness in an Unforgiving World. So welcome to the show, Megan.
Thank you.
It's such an honor to have you here.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm happy to be on.
Oh, most definitely. Well, I know your book has been just touted by some of the most amazing minds, and when I got a hold of a copy, I definitely needed to have you on the show to talk about this, but also in regards to forgiveness. And I think that's a topic we can really hear right at this present time.
Yeah, I agree.
So what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I never expected to write about forgiveness per se. It was a bit of a surprise. One, because I have always tended to be a pretty objective, skeptical journalist and covered pretty gritty topics like war and poverty and immigration. And, I guess it always seemed either dogmatic or kind of weak and woo-woo. And I also by nature tend to be more of a grudge holder than a forgiver, I would say. And so basically I found myself doing a magazine cover story about a man named Azim Kamisa who forgave the man who murdered his son. And when I did that story, I was feeling pretty bitter and angry for a couple of reasons. One, I had recently gone through a breakup, and two, the journalism industry was really kind of imploding, and it was becoming more and more difficult to make a living. And so when I met Azim, and I spent about a week with him for this story, I was so struck by the fact that he had not only forgiven the young man who murdered his son, but reached out to this young man's family and became best friends with the killer's grandfather. And together, these two men, one who lost a son to murder and the other who lost a grandson to prison, started this incredible nonprofit organization that does nonviolent education in at-risk schools around the country and also around the world. And Azim talked a lot about the fact that forgiveness was really what enabled him to survive his son's death and create this really meaningful life. So when I met him, I was taken aback and I was a little perplexed and I was very curious. So I wanted to learn more.
I can tell from your book that obviously this had such a profound impact on you. Was it something that just kind of switched in you and you had this change, or was it over the course of time and just kind of getting more into this Azim story?
I would say that it was more gradual. I mean, there was kind of a light bulb that went off for me when I spent time with Azim that week that, there's something here and I want to find out what it is. And then as I learned more, as I looked at the science and as I began to meet more people who'd forgiven or sought forgiveness in different circumstances and really just got more into it, I would say it was kind of incremental.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a lot of people can relate with you and with your story because, most people have something that they hold on as far as with a grudge. I mean, it could be something from their childhood or divorce or work or you name it, but most people that you'd meet would have something that they're still holding on to and not letting go. So
Sure.
what are some of the things that you would suggest for them?
For people who are holding grudges
Yep.
or just having trouble letting something go?
Well, probably all of that. Because
yeah.
I think we could have fallen in one category or the other,
Sure. I mean, there's a lot. In terms of trespasses that are on the bigger side, like having lost someone you love
mm-hmm.
or experiencing a pretty severe betrayal. When we talk about forgiving those sorts of things, it's always two things. It's always two steps, and the first is grieving and the second is letting go. And, grief looks a little different for everybody. We know about the stages of grief, but they're certainly not linear, whether it's depression or anger, or shock or all of that. But really the people who are good at grieving tend to be good at forgiving. And those of us who are more likely to just try to tamp it all down and, not feel what we're feeling or pretend that everything's fine, we tend to get stuck. So grieving and letting go. And the other big thing that I discovered is how similar mindfulness and forgiveness are and how much they have in common. And I actually, when I was researching the different commonalities when it comes to forgiveness and practices that facilitate it in different world faiths, I hit upon a lot of practices that facilitate forgiveness that happen to be from Buddhism. And one of those is mindfulness meditation and just the practice of mindfulness. And of course, you don't have to be a Buddhist to practice that. So I would say being mindful is one really helpful thing that I found that can help you to let go. Because when you're being present in the moment and you're observing your reactions instead of really getting sucked into them and activated by them, you're able to have a little bit of distance from that, from that anger or that resentment.
Well, and it really, like you're saying, it puts you in a place where you're more of an observer as opposed to reacting, which is not really thinking. It's just kind of based off of past emotions and past pains. So
right.
Well, we're lucky here, I know in Colorado we have several meditation centers. There's one on Pearl Street that I go to quite often, my youth sanctuary. And so it's kind of nice to have these little places even within urban areas that you can go to. And for our listeners, I would suggest that they look within their own community and see what's available to them as well. Now,
definitely.
And what a great point, because, a lot of times when people think about forgiveness, mindfulness isn't something that they think would even go hand in hand with it. So I love how you bridge that.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. You are mostly a writer that hits the hard stuff, and that's what you're very well known for, is doing, writing about topics that other people are that are really affect the world today. With what's been happening in Charlotte and other cities across the U.S., how can we work and be active participants in creating a different outcome?
Well, so I think you're referring to police officers shooting and killing unarmed black men.
Well,
in general, and the response that that evokes.
It's a dual question. So, when we talk about police officers and definitely, killing African Americans, and then also as a community, how we respond to that.
Yeah, I would say, look, one of the things that is really definitive when it comes to whether our biological or kind of evolutionary impulses for aggression and revenge, or on the other hand, forgiveness and peacemaking, are going to come out. Like part of a large part of what determines which side of us is going to be expressed is the environment we live in. And when societies are chaotic, and especially when there's a lack of justice and a lack of law and order, it's revenge. It just makes revenge much more likely. And there's some, reasons for that go back to ancestral humans. But the point I'm making is that when there's no justice, revenge and ongoing violence is pretty much a sure bet. So when you have these situations where, basically due to racism, due to people prejudging each other, and just due to a lot of fear, frankly, on the part of communities of color and on the part of officers, fear of the other, it's pretty predictable, particularly when we see pretty blanket impunity with these officers. Generally they don't face justice, and it's very difficult. Even when you talk to district attorneys about this, they'll tell you it's incredibly difficult, if not impossible, with the current laws to make sure that officers face justice in these cases. So that impunity really leads to either escalation or just a continuation of these heartbreaking, horrific events that continue to happen.
Yeah, and I think and correct me if I'm wrong, or let me know if I'm kind of in the weeds with this one, but I think being more involved not only with, our police officers, but with our community, and letting them know that, showing that we support both, because it's, not all police officers are bad, just like not all, French are good cooks,
Of course.
And at the same token, when there's peaceful protests going on, we want to be able to participate that and be leaders within that community, and see what we can also do to help keep it in as far as peaceful as possible.
Definitely. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about having respect for both sides. And I hate to say sides. I mean, it's so sad that we're now
all
in a situation
on the
in
same
this country,
side.
where we are all on the same side. And the more that we can get that, the better. But I think that's going to take, first, it is going to take some justice, because no justice, no peace is absolutely correct when you look at the evolutionary biology piece of it and just, human behavior. And I just have to say the immediate urges for calm, that as soon as another video hits the internet, everyone's saying, telling communities of color to be calm. It doesn't work. What we need to be doing is doing our best to try to imagine what it would be like, to be either living in an urban community where most people are families of color and most officers tend to be white, which is a separate issue. And on the other hand, try to imagine what it would be like to be an officer and be afraid, and have an obvious lack of training. And so I think a big part of the solution, it's complicated, but I think one aspect of the solution is creating avenues for dialogue, between communities and officers and law enforcement. And, and that takes admitting that we need that.
I think it's a lot of outreach on both sides, and again, not sides, but with our law enforcement and with our community leaders in not just in urban areas, but in all areas. So, I appreciate you spending time talking about this, because I do know you like to hit, topics that most people might not be very comfortable discussing, or not sure really how to approach it. Maybe they haven't had as much information or education on it. So I do appreciate you going there with us.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So, but to get back to your amazing book, You talk about how, resentment, forgiveness have these effects on our body. So what are some of the differences?
Yeah, so when it comes to anger and resentment over time, the studies show that it leads to a number of different things. So one, it puts you more at risk for high blood pressure and even for heart attack. Mm-hmm. And it really impacts the brain and makes you more likely to be depressed, more likely to be anxious. And that's because of the cocktail of neurotransmitters that are released in the brain when we're angry. And when we're thinking of that person we're holding a grudge against. And the other thing that happens in the brain is that over time, when you're holding a grudge and you're having that stress reaction, is the frontal lobe's ability to solve problems is impeded. Mm-hmm. And then on the other hand, forgiveness tends to reverse those effects. So people who are more likely to forgive and more forgiving, or people who undergo forgiveness therapy. That's what a lot of the studies on forgiveness specifically use a control group that is undergoing some sort of forgiveness therapy or, counseling with a forgiveness component. And those studies show that it's good for the heart. One study even showed that blood flow increased to the heart of cardiac patients who went through this forgiveness process. And it reverses those negative effects that anger and resentment have on the brain, which means that instead of being more at risk for depression and anxiety, the more forgiving you are, the less at risk you are for those mood disorders. And that's because the parts of the brain that are activated when you're undergoing a process of forgiveness or when you're not angry all the time, your frontal lobe is more activated. The amygdala, which is that primitive reactionary survival part of the brain, is less activated. And you're not flooding your brain with those stress chemicals like adrenaline.
Yeah. Well, and what if you have someone that says, hey, I'm having a hard time forgiving like the unforgivable, and especially when we talk in regards to the case of like child abuse. Is it possible for people to move beyond that effectively?
Absolutely. Yeah, I wrote a whole chapter about forgiving parents, and I interviewed, I think about 25 to 30 people about this, and obviously also reviewed, the social science literature about this. And it's absolutely possible to forgive anyone for anything, including child abuse and incest. And I talked to a lot of people who have done so. And it was very enlightening for me. And one of the things that I found really fascinating is that some people almost it's like they uncover memories they didn't know they had about that parent that are positive in the process of forgiving, and they almost acquire like a new childhood in their mind, in their memory. Mm-hmm. And so it's almost this unleashing of positive memories, which I found really interesting. One woman had forgiven her mother, who was mentally ill and had attempted to kill her and her sisters on a couple occasions. And she said that once she forgave her mom, she started remembering all of these incredible moments, like when her mother knitted her this beautiful green dress, or sewed it, this beautiful dress that her mother made her that she prized when she was a child, and other moments like that. And it doesn't mean, a lot of the problems that we have with forgiveness is that we don't even know what it is. The definition is to give up resentment. That doesn't mean that, you're saying it's okay that it happened. That doesn't mean that you're excusing the behavior. And it doesn't even necessarily mean that you're going to reconcile with that person.
Yeah, it's just being able to get to a place of personal freedom. So that, that you can, go on and really be a more just productive person in your own life. It's not even so much for the community, but it affects everybody.
Absolutely.
Now, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to leave our listeners with? I know that everyone should go and pick up your book. That's number one.
Well, I will say, one of my favorite parts of exploring all of this for the book and getting to profile such incredible people all over the world and even in Africa. I spent a month in Rwanda. It was really inspiring to look at how seeking and granting forgiveness can bring healing to us as individuals and interpersonally, as well as collectively. Whether it be after genocide in Rwanda, in the most kind of extreme, example that I explored. And I encourage everyone to read those chapters on Rwanda because they're my favorite part of the book. They're just so incredible. And, and also, the inner city stories about how do we foster the seeking and granting of forgiveness in our communities and in our schools. That was all really, really encouraging to me because we have the tools that we need. We have research-proven practices that work to foster the seeking and granting of forgiveness in our families and in our communities. And that's really the road to peace, in my opinion. If we were all better at seeking forgiveness and making amends and forgiving ourselves and forgiving others, this would be a much more peaceful world. And so yesterday was the International Day of Peace, and I've been thinking about that a lot. And I truly believe that, that we can progress towards a more peaceful planet if we do that. And I do have a lot of practices in my appendix in the book that are helpful, that I relied on throughout the process and that I still go back to because it's a work in progress for me. I'm still working on my forgiveness muscles, and I probably will be for my whole life.
Yeah, I think once you start down that path, it's a personal journey. And it's just like a flower unfolding. We have a new petal all the time that we get to explore and say, okay, this is a new level of forgiveness that I maybe wasn't even aware of, or something that shows up. And how do we show up for the day? Yeah. How do we show up for the world? So, well, I know our listeners can go to your website, meganfeldman.com, where they can be part of your community, purchase your book. I know you have a fabulous TED Talk there that you did on the topic.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I suggest everyone sign up for your newsletter, your mailing list, and really listen to the TED Talk, and of course, purchase your books. So,
well, thank you so much, Marianne.
Oh, thank you. It's been such a joy to spend this time with you, and such an honor. And we'll
likewise.
Anytime you have a new book, you just let us know. We'd love to have you back.
All right. Well, thanks, Marianne.
Well, thank you, Megan. It's been such a joy to have you on the show today with us. So before we sign off for the rest of today, forgiveness in today's world is such a big deal and so important. It's important to get outside of ourselves and see how other people are feeling, like Megan so brilliantly discussed during this last segment. And purchasing her book would really be a great way to start headed in the right direction as far as being able to have more forgiveness, not just in your heart, but also in the conversations that we have with others. So I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in today and being a part of our great big family here at Moments with Marianne. If you go to my website at mariannepastana.com, you can sign up for my newsletter, in which we also give away some amazing gifts on a monthly basis. There's also some other shows to be aware of and to pay attention to, and other great giveaways that we'll be having throughout the remaining portion of this year. 2006 has been a phenomenal year for so many of us. There's been so much transformation and change that's taken place. And it's a good time to let go of the things that no longer serve us and move into a new awareness of what really works for us in all areas. So I invite you to email me your thoughts, questions, and any other comments that you have, maybe show guests that you might be interested in seeing here on Moments with Marianne. I've been receiving so many fabulous emails. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to reach out. For those that are new to Moments with Marianne, you can also reach me on social media. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Twitter. And not to forget Instagram. So make sure to reach out, email me at marianne@mariannepastana.com, and let me know what it is that you would like to see for 2017. We've got a great show lineup coming for the new year. Can't believe we're almost towards the end of October at this point and getting into our fourth quarter, so to speak. And also, being that this has been my birthday month, I want to encourage and invite each and every one of you to join me in doing random acts of kindness every day. One of my favorite ways of doing a random act of kindness is doing a simple gesture that's called heart to heart. It's a blessing that you can do anonymously for anybody. So if you see people on the street that you feel a heart pull for, or you know a friend that's having kind of a tough time, or whatever the case may be, heart to heart is a great way of being able to give them a blessing that really makes a profound difference. To learn how to do heart to heart, you can visit my mentor, Judy Goodman, at her website, judygoodman.com, and she has listed there how to do heart to heart, and it really does make a big difference. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to tune in with us today. Make sure to pick up Megan's book and be part of her community as well. And Alan, we had it was a dynamic discussion today. So make sure to pick up their book, email me with your thoughts, questions, and I look forward to our next time together. So thank you for tuning in with us today. And remember, make every moment count.
Join us next time for Moments with Marianne, when host Marianne Pastana brings another inspirational gifted leader to help us grow. Tune in every second Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Moments with Marianne, when the Dream Vision 7 radio network is at 1510 a.m. Boston. Or catch Moments with Marianne every Thursday and Friday at 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. Eastern Time by going to dreamvision7radio.com. To learn how Marianne started her business from the ground up, visit mariannepastana.com. Don't miss this, and remember, make every moment count.